But first, what is it with the Albanese government who are making us about as popular as the North Koreans, with Australia snubbed again at an international event? And what a waste of $100,000 or so that it's cost taxpayers to send Richard Marles and his entourage to the NATO summit this week, and for Marles then to miss out not just on a meeting with the US President, but also his own counterpart, the US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth. And just in case Marles misread the snub, his place in the NATO family photograph made it all crystal clear, not just to us in Australia, but every other government in the world who knows how to read these sort of diplomatic displays. And what could we expect, given our readiness to vote against the United States at the UN over and over again on the question of Israel, and our stubborn refusal to increase defence spending when every other close ally of the United States is? It shows just how out of step we are that the Starmer government in Britain, in many ways the ideological soulmate of the Albanese government here, is increasing its defence spending to 2.7% of GDP immediately and to 3.5% of GDP early in the 2030s, and of course this new 5%. But here at home, we're just limping along around 2% now, even though we admit these are the most perilous times in 7 decades, that we are unable to defend ourselves and that we are reliant on an ally that doesn't really want to know us anymore. Here's Marles trying to justify his trip.
What matters now is that the quality of that defence spending is the best that it can be, so that we are in fact increasing production across all of our countries, which will mean that there is actual better capability which results from this increase in expenditure.
And here's the government's leadership from the Prime Minister down trying to justify existing parlous levels of defence spending.
We are actually already very substantially increasing our investment in defence. We've found room in tight budgets.
We have to rethink our approach on defence, given how volatile the world is.
Our approach, Kieran, is very clear, which is we will ensure that Australia has the capability that we need.
Of course we will determine our own defence spending based on Australia's national interest.
Whatever you think of Donald Trump, there's no doubt he's had a triumphant few days. First, he's done what all his recent predecessors threatened to do, but couldn't.
As long as I'm President of the United States, Iran will not get a nuclear weapon.
Here's my message to Iran's leaders. The United States will never allow you to acquire a nuclear weapon.
We will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon.
What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
Now, unlike their mere words, he's most likely wiped out Iran's nuclear weapons program. Second, he's achieved what all his predecessors sought to do but never were able to achieve. He's forced America's European allies to substantially increase their defence spending, which leaves us more isolated than ever in Australia, having totally failed to respond to pretty reasonable requests of our ally, the same ally, of course, on which we're totally dependent on for the defence of Australia. In a couple of weeks' time, the Talisman Sabre multinational military exercises will take place here in Northern Australia. It's an impressive display of democratic unity and resolve. But we can't expect our allies to do more for Australia than we are prepared to do for ourselves. And we can't expect American sons and daughters to put their lives on the line for Australia when they're spending close to 4% of GDP on defence and we are spending half that. As I wrote in my column today for The Australian, under the Albanese government, the US alliance is on life support at best. And that's why Anthony Albanese wouldn't go to NATO. And that's why he won't go to Washington either, but he will go to Beijing. Now, this is a bloke who feels more comfortable with an Australia that's an economic colony of China than an Australia that's a military ally of the United States. And he can't bear being exposed to an Oval Office dressing down before the media for failing to do what every self-respecting nation should, namely maintain the ability to defend itself. This government is cannibalising the armed forces now to pay for AUKUS subs that won't arrive for 7 years, if at all. Look at the record of them. You know, the Albanese government's cancelled an order for an extra squadron of F-35s. It's drastically cut back on an order for new armoured vehicles. It's prematurely retired an Anzac frigate. It's failed thus far to place an order for new frigates. And it's about to retire our last minesweepers. Now, if he was a soldier leaving his post undefended like this, Anthony Albanese would face a court-martial. Yet somehow as PM, he thinks it's okay, and we're letting him get away with it. Now, you walk the graves of Gallipoli, the Somme or Vietnam, and you tell me that freedom is free. You tell me freedom is free because it is not. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And this Prime Minister is sleepwalking Australia into danger.